In many countries, both the left wing and most feminist organizations say trans women are women. So with whom do you cooperate in your country?
In the US, it's very hard to accomplish anything without working with what are traditionally referred to as right-wing organizations. And that's in part because they have most of the power. So in the US, most of us who are radical feminists are either Democrats or independents. And I don't know any radical feminist who's a Republican in the US. Maybe there are some, but the truth is that they're in power. And when I get asked this question about Wolf's affiliations with what are traditionally referred to as right-wing organizations, my answer is basically, we consider the assault on women's rights presented by the gender identity agenda as an emergency. It is in most places, but it definitely is here. And we would be irresponsible not to use every tool that's available to us to fight it. So when opportunities arise to collaborate or work with or partner with people with whom we disagree on many things, we do it when it's strategic to do so. So, I'm aware that it's been very controversial, and Wolf has been frequently criticized for aligning with traditionally right-wing organizations. Wolf stands unapologetically for complete reproductive sovereignty for women. And part of what that means is that we are at odds with some of the organizations that we do occasionally partner with. We somewhat notoriously got criticized for accepting money from an organization called the Alliance Defending Freedom. We accepted a one-time donation from ADF in order to pay some legal fees for a lawsuit that we had filed called Women's Liberation Front versus United States of America. We were quite proud of that title. And we incurred some legal fees to do that. And so we accepted some money in order to pay those legal fees. And that generated a great deal of controversy. But the truth is that we fought that legal battle, and we continue to fight that legal battle. And, we'll do what we have to do to fight it, even if it means occasionally partnering with some organizations that we stand firmly in opposition to on many issues, including marriage equality and the right to contraception and abortion. It also turns out, from having spoken with some Republicans, that we actually do agree on quite a few things, including opposition to gender ideology and including our opposition to pornography and prostitution. So there are some ways that we can work together with people and with organizations that we disagree with on a lot of issues has completely sold out women. My city council in Washington, D.C. is run by Democrats who a few years ago promoted a bill to completely decriminalize prostitution in Washington, D.C. This bill would have been an absolute disaster for D.C. women, also women in surrounding areas in Virginia and Maryland who would absolutely have been trafficked into the district. The overwhelming majority of prostituted and trafficked women in DC are Black, and the remaining women who are trafficked and prostituted in DC are Latina. And there's just no question that if this bill had passed, it would have resulted in the trafficking of tens of thousands of women within and into DC to serve mainly the white men who would have bought them. And this was pushed by the Democratic Party in my city. So I'm a little bit, I'm frustrated with what passes for the left in my country and in my city. And I still consider myself to be on the left. I always have been. And I like the phrase that I hear frequently in radical feminist spaces that says, we haven't left, the left has left us.
In the Netherlands, the left actually is the initiator of the self-ID law. So this is horrible. So the only people that will talk to us are the liberals and the Christian parties, and the left-wing parties just blatantly refuse to talk to us. So we're forced to talk to the other groups, with whom we don't agree on many things. But they're the only ones who want to talk to us about self-idea. And so we do it. We're not like bloating everything around, but that's also impossible because there is no press covering the whole issue. I got one letter in the Christian newspaper, a national Christian newspaper, but that's all of the press attention we get for the self-ID law. So we have to, I don't know what we have to do because, well, we're a bit in trouble. And I'm just like Cara. I think, well, if anybody will talk to us, we will do it because we need them to stop the self-ID law. And that's our main objective. And I don't care if I don't agree with them on other issues.
Situation here in Brazil, it's the same, left is totally colonized by trans activists and pimp lobbyists and pornographers and all this kind of people. What I would like to emphasize on Cara's speech is this is an emergency. What's happened now, it's serious. We need some changes and now. We cannot wait until all people in the left wake up, and so that we can't wait, women are being raped on prison, kids are being castrated. It's a very, we just can't, I'm very comfortable with this. I really don't care what people say. Of course, some of my friends, feminist friends and friends from the lefties, sometimes they think, oh, gee, are you okay? And I said, and I'm really very, very comfortable in this situation because, I've tried everything I could. I talked to many of my friends that are from the left parties and nothing happens. So I always say that there is the ideal and there is the possible. And, political, social movements are about what is possible now, and this is what is possible for us to now.
Well, I mean, in the UK, gender critical feminists have been quite split. They're ones that have supported the Labour Party and desperately tried to get them to change on trans issues and gender identity and so on. And they've spent years and years on doing this, and nothing has changed. And the Labour Party has remained like what other women have been saying in other countries, totally dedicated to gender identity, gender ideology. And it's just being taken over really by trans activists. And although probably because now we've got a new Labour Party leader, there may be some possibility of them in the future standing up for women's rights and women's sex-based rights. That is certainly not happening now. And for many of us, though, we are happy to work with whoever will support us to defeat gender ideology and to defend lesbian rights and women's rights and to maintain those. And at the moment, that is the Conservative Party, our Conservative Party, and it's conservative women who are prepared, speaking out now, much more than before, speaking out and saying yes, we should have women's sex-based rights. We should have women's sex-based rights in hospitals, in schools, in all the organisations where we've lost those rights, and saying that women's rights must be defended. I mean, there's also a bit of a grey area where they're saying, oh, well, yeah, we're happy to support transgender adults, they're also supporting us in not having children being medically transitioned and taking puberty blockers, etc. So they are the ones that support us. And even though women on the left have been criticising us, they've also been using Tory MPs and so on to arrange meetings for us. The Lesbian Rights Alliance arranged a meeting with women Labour MPs in the House of Commons to try and convince them what is happening, telling them what's happening to lesbians and young lesbians, and why they should stand up for women and lesbian rights, and stand against gender ideology. And very, very few of them have, one or two. So we have no choice. And to us, it's important that we defeat gender ideology in the long run. And that's our goal.
First of all, I need to say I'm not giving a position from the Women's Human Rights Campaign or anything of that kind, because what I'm going to say really is what personally I've been doing over the last 40 years in relation to this issue, and that we all have to be very strategic and work out what we think and who we want to work with in any given situation. So this is not a position paper here at all. Over the last 40 years, this issue of what do you think about the right has come up over and over again. And of course, I came to radical revolutionary feminism from socialist feminism. I've always voted Labour. I've been in the Labour Party. So my position has been seen as on the left, but the left has always been hostile to all of the campaigns that I've been involved in, which have always been about trying to stop violence against women, particularly sexual violence, and change male sexuality. So the left has always been supportive of prostitution and pornography, and of course now transgenderism and surrogacy and so on. So the problem is, to what extent are feminists prepared to work with the right, which is also enormously hostile to women, but in a very different way? They're not trying to seek greater access for men to women, but to protect and own their own individual women. So left and right are both huge problems for feminists. But let me give one example in relation to prostitution. So what I'm saying is we need to work out, for the gains we need to make for the states of emergency we're in, what are we prepared to do in different situations? And when I was living in Melbourne, in the state of Tasmania, there was a bill to legalise prostitution and make the offering of women to men in this way a matter of state, and simply for the state would be offering the women. So I was invited by a Christian Conservative MP to go and speak to members of the upper house in Tasmania about this. And I went there, and I was in the tea room at the Parliament House, and there were all conservative Christians around the table, apart from one woman who was a survivor of prostitution who had a huge cross around her neck. I started saying immediately that I was a lesbian and spoke as a lesbian all the time. I said, as a lesbian this, as a lesbian that. It's very important if they're going to have me do anything with them that they recognize that. And at one point, the woman in prostitution gave me, that had escaped prostitution, put a piece of paper across the table to me. And on it said, I'm a lesbian too, Sheila. Now, that I think shows the problems and how complex it is to work in these situations. So I don't believe in any, we mustn't touch the right or work with the right and all that kind of stuff. I support the complex decisions that Wolf has been making in the US about how to work on this issue. So what I would say is, around these issues that are important to us and at points of emergency, we have to work out, what can we do in this situation? Is that going to be too compromising? Is it absolutely crucial that we do this here? Blanket positions don't help us, and huge amounts of real nastiness have arisen in the UK around taking up those positions. Not about what strategically needs to be done, what has to be done in this situation, but about throwing mud at other feminists. And I think These are strategic decisions we have to make in particular issues and at particular times.
Politically, I think I can speak for a lot of also my other group members and others who are not part of the group. We are political homeless. I can see none of the parties in Germany taking the issue on board. The Green it doesn't, the left doesn't. The only ones who do are the right wings, but for reasons which are just creepy and just impossible to even contemplate them. And it is just like Sheila Jeffries just said, it's an ongoing thing. It is not a new thing. It happens all the time. I remember even my mother decades ago, when she was a member of the Green Party, said she wants to have women's issues being a subject, and she got called down for, no, we have important things now to do. That was the reason why she left said party. So it's not a new thing. It's something we've been left in hot soup, or we've been left in the cold by basically the right and the left, and this is an ongoing issue. They have their own pattern. It's a repetitive pattern, so we need to find our own way. I think the LGBT Alliance is a very good start if you focus on women and not on women's issues. That's the only way we can get our things ahead.
Just for everyone's information, the US state of Georgia, the Green Party has signed on to the declaration, and that state's Green Party is being threatened with excommunication from the National Green Party because it signed on to the declaration.